The hammer struck hot metal with a steady rhythm that echoed through the small forge. Do-hyun wiped sweat from his forehead and examined the mining tool he was repairing. The metal glowed orange in the dim light of his workshop on Thresh 9, a lonely mining colony at the edge of known space. This was his life now, fixing broken equipment and making simple tools for the workers and traders who passed through the station. He didn't remember anything before 5 years ago. He had woken up in a medical pod with no memory of who he was or where he came from. The station doctors said it was amnesia from an accident, but they had no records of what happened. They gave him the name Do-hyun because he needed something to be called. He chose to become a blacksmith because his hands seemed to know the work, even when his mind didn't remember learning it. The door to his forge opened with a hiss. Kylthar stepped inside, his reptilian scales reflecting the firelight. The Skrith merchant was one of Do-hyun's regular customers, always polite and always paying on time. "Blacksmith Do-hyun, I have unusual requests today," Kylthar said, his voice carrying the slight hiss common to his species. He carefully unwrapped a long bundle of cloth. "I need you to examine this blade. Maybe repair if possible." Do-hyun set down his hammer and approached. Kylthar revealed a sword unlike anything Do-hyun had seen before. The blade seemed to be made of crystalline metal that shifted between blue and silver as it caught the light. Strange markings ran along its length, symbols that looked almost familiar but made no sense to him. "Where did you find this?" Do-hyun asked. "Salvage crew recovered it from derelict ship in Dead Zone," Kylthar explained. "Very old. I want to sell to collector but need expert to verify it is authentic and functional." Kylthar reached for the sword's handle, but nothing happened. The blade remained silent and still. He lifted it and turned it over, examining it closely. Perhaps it is just decorative piece after all." "May I?" Do-hyun asked, extending his hand. "Of course, that is why I brought it here." The moment Do-hyun's fingers touched the handle, everything changed. The sword began to emit a high-pitched hissing sound, like steam escaping from a broken pipe. The blade started to glow with a soft blue light that grew brighter with each passing second. The hissing rose in pitch, becoming almost musical. Kylthar stumbled backward, his eyes wide with shock. "Impossible," he whispered. "It cannot be." Do-hyun nearly dropped the sword in surprise, but his grip tightened instinctively. The weapon felt warm in his hands, almost alive. The hissing sound seemed to resonate through his bones, and for a brief moment, he saw flashes of something in his mind. Battles, ships exploding in space, people in strange armor fighting with glowing weapons. "What is this thing?" Do-hyun asked, setting the sword down quickly on his workbench. The hissing stopped immediately and the glow faded. Kylthar was backing toward the door. "I must go. I must think. This is not ordinary weapon." He rushed out without another word, leaving the sword behind. Do-hyun stared at the blade. It looked like ordinary metal again, showing no signs of the strange reaction. He reached out slowly and touched it again. The hissing returned instantly, and the blue glow lit up his forge. He pulled his hand back and it stopped. "What are you?" he asked the silent sword. The door opened again and Mira walked in. She was a young human woman who worked as a mechanic on the station. Over the past few years, she had become Do-hyun's only real friend. She always stopped by his forge when she had free time. "Hey Do-hyun, I finished that power coupling you needed for your smelter," she said, then stopped when she saw his expression. "What's wrong? You look like you've seen a ghost." "Touch this sword," he said. Mira frowned but walked over to the workbench. She picked up the blade and turned it over in her hands. "It's beautiful. Strange metal. Where did it come from?" "Nothing happened?" Do-hyun asked. "What do you mean?" "It's just a sword. A really well-made one, but still just a sword." Do-hyun took the handle from her hands. The instant he touched it, the hissing filled the forge again and the blue light returned. Mira gasped and stepped back. "Okay, that's not normal," she said. "How are you doing that?" "I'm not doing anything. It just happens when I touch it." Mira circled the workbench, studying the sword from different angles. Her mechanic's mind was already working on the problem. "May I scan it?" Do-hyun nodded, still holding the hissing blade. Mira pulled out her portable scanner and ran it over the sword. She frowned at the readings. "This doesn't make sense. The scanner says the metal is in some kind of quantum state. It's like the molecular structure is shifting constantly, but only when you're in contact with it. When you let go, it stabilizes into a normal crystalline matrix." "What does that mean?" Do-hyun asked. "I have no idea. This is technology way beyond anything I've seen. Where did Kael'thar get this? He said salvage crew found it in a derelict ship. Mira's expression grew serious. Do-hyun, I think you need to be careful with this. Something that reacts specifically to you? That's not random. Maybe it's connected to your past somehow. The thought had already occurred to Do-hyun, but hearing Mira say it made it feel more real. For 5 years, he had searched for any clue about who he was before the amnesia. He had found nothing. Now this sword appeared and reacted only to him. I should try to find out more about it, he said. Agreed. I'll ask around. See if anyone knows about old ships with weapons like this. You should keep it hidden for now. If it's valuable or dangerous, you don't want the wrong people knowing you have it. Mira left with promises to research what she could. Do-hyun closed his forge for the day and sat in the dim light holding the sword. The hissing had become almost comfortable, like a familiar song he couldn't quite remember. He practiced picking it up and setting it down, watching the glow fade in and out. That night, Do-hyun couldn't sleep. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw strange visions. He saw himself fighting, moving faster than should be possible, cutting through armored soldiers with a glowing blade. He saw a woman with kind eyes calling him by a different name. He saw explosions and fire and a terrible choice being made. He woke up gasping, covered in sweat. The room was dark except for a faint blue glow. The sword was lying on his workbench across the room, but it was glowing softly even though he wasn't touching it. Do-hyun got up and approached it carefully. As he got closer, the glow brightened. When he was within arm's reach, the hissing started again, quiet and almost gentle this time. He didn't know what any of this meant, but he knew one thing for certain. This sword was part of his forgotten past. Somehow it recognized him even when he didn't recognize himself. Outside his small quarters, hidden in the shadows of the station's maintenance corridors, a figure watched through a remote camera. They activated a communication device, the holographic display showing only darkness on the other end. We found him, the figure whispered. The Phantom is alive. Send word to the others. After 20 years, Hyun has finally been located. The communication cut off, leaving only silence. Inside his room, Do-hyun held the sword and wondered why the name Hyun felt like an echo of something he should remember. The blade hissed softly in his hands, as if trying to answer a question he didn't know how to ask. 3 days passed after the sword first hissed in Do-hyun's hands. He kept it hidden in his forge, wrapped in cloth and locked in a storage container. But he thought about it constantly. The dreams came every night now, more vivid and more disturbing. He saw battles he couldn't remember fighting and heard voices calling him by names he didn't recognize. Mira had found very little information. Old military ships sometimes carried special weapons, she learned, but nothing matched the description of the crystalline blade. Most of her contacts refused to talk about it once she described what it did. That silence worried Do-hyun more than anything. He was working on a simple cooking pot when the forge door opened. A man walked in, someone Do-hyun had never seen before. He was human, older, maybe in his 50s, with gray hair and scars on his weathered face. He moved like a soldier, careful and alert. His eyes found the storage container immediately, even though it looked like all the others. You don't remember me, do you? The man said. Should I? Do-hyun asked, setting down his hammer carefully. No, I suppose not. They made sure of that. The man walked closer, studying Do-hyun's face. But I remember you. I could never forget. You were the best of us, Hyun. The name hit Do-hyun like a physical blow. It was the same name from his dreams, the one that felt both foreign and familiar. My name is Do-hyun, he said. That's what they call you now. But 20 years ago you were Hyun, Hyun the Phantom, and you were the greatest warrior humanity ever produced. I think you have the wrong person. The man shook his head sadly. I wish I did. My name is Tae-jin. I was your commanding officer in the Blade Corps. That sword you found, it's yours. It was always yours. Do-hyun wanted to dismiss this as madness, but something in Tae-jin's voice rang true. What is the Blade Corps? Sit down. This will take some time to explain. Tae-jin told him about the coalition wars, conflicts that had raged across the galaxy 20 years ago. Different alien species fighting for territory and resources. Humanity was new to galactic politics, weak and disrespected, so they created something that would change everything. The Blade Corps was humanity's answer to the stronger alien militaries. They took the best human warriors and bonded them to specially created weapons using something called resonance technology. Each weapon was unique, forged to match its warriors' neural patterns. When bonded, the warrior and weapon became one, capable of incredible speed and power. There were only 12 of us, Taejin said. 12 warriors with 12 unique weapons. We could do things that seemed impossible. Cut through starship hulls. Move faster than eyes could follow. You were the first, the prototype. Your sword was the most advanced weapon ever created. Why don't I remember any of this? Do-hyun asked. Taejin's expression darkened. Because of what happened at the Crimson Gate. It was supposed to be a simple mission. Our squad was sent to disable an enemy communication station. But it was a trap. The entire facility was rigged to explode. We lost everyone. Everyone? Everyone except you and me. I barely escaped. They told me you died in the explosion. They held a funeral. I watched them bury an empty coffin. Taejin's voice grew rough with emotion. But you didn't die, did you? Somehow you survived. And someone decided to wipe your memory and hide you away. Do-hyun felt sick. Why would they do that? I've spent 20 years trying to figure that out. The Blade Corps was disbanded after the Crimson Gate mission. All our weapons were supposed to be destroyed. The technology was classified and buried, but if you're alive and your sword is active, then someone kept you in reserve. The question is why? The forge door burst open. An insectoid alien in Coalition military uniform entered, followed by 4 armed guards. His compound eyes fixed on Do-hyun with cold intensity. I am Officer Hyunwoo of Coalition Intelligence, the alien said. The weapon known as Resonance Blade 7 must be surrendered immediately. It is classified military property. Taejin moved to stand between them and Do-hyun. He doesn't have any weapon. Do not lie to me, human. We have been tracking that blade's energy signature since it activated 3 days ago. Hand it over, and there will be no trouble. Do-hyun's mind raced. Part of him wanted to just give them the sword and end this nightmare, but another part, something deeper and more instinctive, screamed at him to run. That part felt like it knew these people couldn't be trusted. The blade is mine, Do-hyun said, surprising himself with the firmness in his voice. I'm not giving it to anyone until I understand what's happening. Hyunwoo's mandibles clicked in what might have been anger. You are in no position to negotiate. Guards secure the weapon and detain both humans. The guards raised their plasma rifles. Taejin's hand moved to his belt, where Do-hyun now noticed he carried a small device. Before anyone could fire, Taejin pressed a button. Smoke erupted throughout the forge, thick and choking. Get the sword and run, Taejin shouted. Do-hyun didn't think. His body moved on instinct, diving for the storage container. His hands found the wrapped sword even in the smoke. The moment he touched it, the hissing started, louder than ever before. Blue light cut through the smoke like a beacon. Plasma fire erupted around them. Taejin returned fire with a small pistol, keeping the guards back. The East Maintenance Tunnel, go! Do-hyun ran, clutching the sword. Behind him, he heard shouting and more weapons fire. He burst through the back door of his forge and into the narrow corridors of the station. His feet knew where to go, even though his mind didn't remember the path. He ran faster than he thought possible, taking turns without thinking. A guard appeared ahead, rifle raised. Without meaning to, Do-hyun swung the sword. The blade cut through the rifle barrel like paper and kept going, slicing through the wall beside the guard's head. The guard stumbled back in shock. Do-hyun stared at the sword in his hands. He hadn't meant to do that. The movement had been perfect, precise, and completely automatic. His body knew how to fight even if his mind didn't remember. Mira's voice crackled over his communicator. Do-hyun, what's happening? Security is looking for you everywhere. Meet me at docking bay 7, he said. We need to leave now. What, why? Please, Mira, trust me. There was a pause, then she answered. I'll prep a cargo hauler. Be there in 5 minutes. Do-hyun kept running. More guards appeared, but each time his body reacted before his mind could catch up. He deflected plasma bolts with the sword, the blade moving impossibly fast. He cut through blast doors that should have taken industrial cutters to open. Each action felt natural, like breathing. He reached the docking bay to find Mira at the controls of a small cargo ship. Taejin appeared seconds later, limping but alive. They scrambled aboard as coalition guards poured into the bay. Go, Taejin shouted. The ship lifted off as weapons fire sparked against its hull. Mira's hands flew over the controls, piloting with skill that surprised Do-hyun. They burst through the docking bay force field and into open space. Where are we going? Mira asked. Away from here, Taejin said. Far away. As they jumped to hyperspace, Do-hyun looked down at the sword still humming in his hands. The blue light pulsed in rhythm with his heartbeat. Taejin sat beside him, his expression grim. You need to know the full truth now. That sword isn't just bonded to you. The resonance technology didn't just link your neural patterns to the weapon. It did something more. Something the scientists didn't fully understand. He met Do-hyun's eyes. That blade is alive. And it's alive because part of you is inside it. When you nearly died at Crimson Gate, your consciousness transferred into the sword to survive. The body you're in now, it's a clone. They grew a new you and implanted your memories. But they left out everything about being a warrior. They thought they could control you that way. Do-hyun felt the world spinning. That's impossible. Look at the sword. Tell me it doesn't feel like part of you. He couldn't, because Taejin was right. The sword didn't feel like a tool in his hands. It felt like an extension of himself. And somewhere deep inside, he knew that Taejin was telling the truth. The sword hissed softly, almost like it was trying to comfort him. Do-hyun closed his eyes and tried to accept what he was learning. He wasn't just a blacksmith with no memory. He was a warrior who had died and been reborn, split between flesh and steel. And somewhere out there, people who had tried to hide him were now hunting him again. The cargo ship drifted through empty space for 3 days while they figured out their next move. Do-hyun spent most of that time in the small cargo hold, practicing with the sword. Each swing brought back fragments of memory. Each movement felt more natural than the last. His body remembered what his mind had forgotten. Mira stayed close to him, her engineer's curiosity fighting with her worry. She had never expected her quiet blacksmith friend to be a legendary warrior. Taejin watched from a distance, his expression a mixture of pride and sadness. "Why do you look at me like that?" Do-hyun asked after one particularly smooth combat form. "Because you're becoming Hyun again," Taejin said, "and I'm not sure if that's good or bad." On the 4th day, they received a transmission on an encrypted channel. The holographic image showed a woman's face, human, with sharp eyes and a commanding presence. "This is Captain Yoonji of the Free Trader Horizon's Edge. I understand you're looking for sanctuary. I may be able to help, but it will cost you." "What's the price?" Taejin asked. "Protection. My ship operates in dangerous territory. Pirates have been hitting our trade routes. If the famous Phantom is really alive and willing to work, I'll give you safe harbor at Haven's Point." Taejin looked at Do-hyun. "It's your choice." Do-hyun thought about it. He needed time to understand what he was, and they needed somewhere to hide while Coalition intelligence searched for them. "We accept." Haven's Point turned out to be a massive space station hidden in an asteroid field. Hundreds of ships docked there, from tiny personal craft to large freighters. The station was neutral territory, a place where refugees and outlaws could live without government interference. Yoonji met them at the docking bay with a young man at her side. "This is Sunwoo," she said, gesturing to her crew member. He couldn't have been more than 20, with eager eyes and an excited expression. "He's going to be very annoying about meeting you." "Fair warning." Sunwoo practically vibrated with excitement. "Is it true? Are you really Hyun the Phantom? I grew up hearing stories about the Blade Corps. My grandfather served in the Coalition military. He said you once cut a battleship in half." "I don't remember doing that," Do-hyun said honestly. "But you could have, right? With that sword?" Do-hyun looked at the blade hanging at his side. "Maybe. I'm still learning what I can do." Yoonji led them through the station to a quiet section where they could stay. The accommodations were basic but safe. She explained that pirate raids had been increasing, and the station's defenses were stretched thin. If Do-hyun could help protect supply runs, she would give them whatever they needed. Over the following weeks, Do-hyun trained with Taejin every day. The old officer pushed him hard, forcing him to remember combat techniques that had been buried with his memories. Mira spent her time researching the Blade Corps project, digging through old military databases and classified files that she probably shouldn't have been able to access. The sword revealed new abilities each day. Do-hyun discovered he could make the blade extend, stretching it to twice its normal length in an instant. He could reshape it slightly, adjusting the curve and weight. Most surprisingly, he found that he could make it phase through certain materials, passing through metal barriers as if they weren't there. "How is this possible?" Mira asked, scanning the sword after a training session. "The quantum state I mentioned before," she explained. "The blade exists in multiple states at once until you observe it or force it into a specific form. It's like it's not quite real until you decide what you need it to be. That's technology centuries ahead of anything we have now. But the sword's power came with a cost." Sometimes during training, Do-hyun felt his emotions shift. He became more aggressive, more willing to hurt his opponents. The sword seemed to enhance his combat instincts, but it also made him colder and more dangerous. Taejin noticed. You need to be careful. The resonance bond works both ways. The sword enhances you, but you also influence it. If you let yourself become nothing but a weapon, you'll lose what makes you human. Mira's research started uncovering disturbing truths. She found classified reports about the Blade Core project. Test subjects before Do-hyun had experienced catastrophic psychological breakdowns. The resonance process drove them insane, unable to separate themselves from their weapons. The project should have been cancelled, but the military needed warriors who could match the stronger alien species. They only succeeded with you, Mira told him one evening. Every other attempt failed. The report says you had a unique neural structure that allowed complete synchronization without losing yourself. But there's a note here that's strange. It says the success might be temporary, that long-term effects were unknown. How long-term? Do-hyun asked. The project ended 20 years ago. You're past any reasonable observation period. If you were going to break down, it would have happened already. But Do-hyun wondered. The blacksmith personality they had created for him. Was that the breakdown? Had they wiped his memory not to hide him, but to save him from the madness of being bonded to a living weapon? His thoughts were interrupted by an alarm. The station shook from weapons fire. Pirates were attacking, a larger force than usual. Yoonji's voice came over the intercom, calling all defenders to their positions. Do-hyun grabbed his sword and ran. Taejin followed along with Mira carrying a plasma rifle. They reached the main docking bay to find chaos. A dozen small attack ships were firing on the station's defenses, while armored pirates tried to board through the damaged sections. Hyun, we need you, Yoonji shouted from behind a barricade. For the first time since recovering his abilities, Do-hyun let himself fully engage in combat. He moved into the open, sword raised. The blade hissed and glowed bright blue. Pirates fired at him, but his sword deflected every shot, moving faster than eyes could follow. He crossed the distance to the first pirate in seconds and cut through their armor like cloth. The sword sang in his hands. That's what it felt like, a song of violence and power. He moved through the pirates like wind through grass, untouchable and devastating. He cut through their weapons, their armor, their barricades. When one of the attack ships tried to strafe him, he leaped impossible high and drove his blade through its hull. The ship exploded, and he landed smoothly among more enemies. Behind him, Sunwoo watched with wide eyes. Incredible, he whispered, but Mira saw what the others missed. Do-hyun's expression had changed. His movements were perfect but mechanical. When a pirate dropped their weapon and tried to surrender, Do-hyun raised his sword to strike anyway. The killing blow would be efficient, clean, and totally unnecessary. Do-hyun, stop, Mira screamed. Her voice cut through the battle haze. Do-hyun froze, his blade inches from the surrendering pirate's throat. He looked down at what he was about to do and horror filled his face. He lowered the sword and stepped back. The remaining pirates fled to their ships and jumped to hyperspace. The battle was over. Haven's Point was safe, but Do-hyun stood in the middle of the docking bay, staring at his hands. They were covered in blood, and he couldn't remember deciding to spill it. Taejin approached carefully. It's the sword. When you fight, it takes over. I've seen it before with the other Blade Corps warriors. That's why the project failed. The weapons were too good at killing. They made their users too good at it, too. I almost killed someone who surrendered, Do-hyun said quietly. I wanted to. The sword wanted me to. No, Taejin corrected. Part of you wanted to. The part that's in the sword, the original Hyun. He was a warrior first and everything else second. That's what made him effective. That's also what makes him dangerous. Sunwoo approached excitedly. That was amazing. You saved the entire station. Did you see how fast you moved? And the way you cut through that ship's hull? People died, Do-hyun said. They were pirates attacking innocent people. You're a hero. But Do-hyun didn't feel like a hero. He felt like a weapon someone had pointed at a target. The sword still hummed in his hand, satisfied with the violence. He wanted to drop it, to walk away from what he was becoming. But he knew he couldn't. The sword was part of him, literally and completely. That night, as the station repaired the damage, Mira found information that changed everything. She burst into Do-hyun's quarters with her datapad, her expression a mix of excitement and fear. I found something. There are more weapons. Other Blade Corps warriors' swords are still out there. At least 6 of them were never recovered after the program ended. And Doyun, someone is collecting them. There's been a pattern of thefts from military storage facilities over the past 5 years. Someone is gathering the resonance weapons. Who? Taejin asked. I don't know, but whoever it is has resources and inside information. They know exactly where to look. She pulled up a list on her pad. And there's more. The official who ordered the Crimson Gate mission. The one who sent you into that trap, she's now an admiral. Her name is Chaewon. And according to these records, she's the one who classified and buried the Blade Corps project. Dohyun felt cold. She tried to kill us all once. Why? Maybe because the Blade Corps was becoming too independent, too powerful. Warriors who couldn't be controlled or dangerous to people in power. If she's collecting the weapons now, Taejin said slowly, then she's planning something. Something that needs warriors who can't be controlled or weapons that can't be stopped. The sword pulsed in Do-hyun's hand as if responding to the threat. Somewhere out there, the person who had tried to erase him was gathering the tools to create more weapons like him. And Do-hyun realized he couldn't hide anymore. He needed to understand what he was, master what he could do, and stop whatever Chaewon was planning. But first he needed to learn how to be both the blacksmith and the warrior, without losing himself to either one. The forest moon of Silthara had air that tasted like rain and earth. Do-hyun breathed it in deeply, remembering nothing about this place but somehow feeling like he had been here before. Yoonji's ship had brought them here following coordinates that Mira had uncovered in her research. The coordinates led to a hidden resistance base, and someone there claimed to know about the Blade Corps. That someone turned out to be a woman with tired eyes and a rifle slung over her shoulder. She stood at the edge of the landing pad as they disembarked, her expression unreadable. But when she saw Do-hyun, something flickered across her face. Pain, hope, anger, all at once. Hello, Hyun, she said softly. It's been a long time. Do-hyun felt his chest tighten. He knew her, not from memory but from something deeper. Who are you? Someone who thought you were dead. She stepped closer, studying his face. But you don't remember me at all, do you? They really did erase everything. Her voice cracked slightly. My name is Ji-won. We served in the Blade Corps together. We were partners. We were more than that. The sword at Do-hyun's side began to hiss softly, responding to emotions he couldn't quite identify. Fragments of memory surfaced. A woman laughing. Training together in a combat simulator. A quiet moment before a mission, hands held in silence. But the memories felt distant, like watching someone else's life. I'm sorry, he said. I don't remember. I know. Taejin told me about the clone body, about the memory wipe. I've had time to process it. But seeing you here alive, it's harder than I expected. She turned away, composing herself. Come, the others are waiting. Ji-won led them through the forest to a concealed base built into the hillside. Inside, dozens of people worked at various stations. Some were human, others were different alien species. This was a resistance movement, Ji-won explained, made up of former military personnel and civilians who had discovered the truth about coalition corruption. A Korean man with a scarred face approached them. He moved like a fighter, cautious and balanced. His eyes lingered on Do-hyun's sword with an expression that looked like fear. This is Min Seok, Ji-won said. He was Blade Corps too. His weapons were twin daggers. Were? Do-hyun asked. Min Seok's jaw tightened. I don't use them anymore. I refuse to. Why? Because I know what they turn you into. I killed innocent people, Hyun. Civilians who were just in the wrong place. I couldn't stop myself. The daggers took over and I became nothing but a weapon. When I finally broke free of it, I locked them away and swore never to touch them again. The warning was clear. Do-hyun touched his own sword unconsciously. How did you break free? Pain. Enough horror that even the weapons couldn't justify it anymore. I don't recommend my method. Ji-won gathered everyone in a briefing room and explained what they had learned. Admiral Chaewon had been collecting the lost Blade Corps weapons systematically. She now had 6 of the original 12, possibly more. Intelligence suggested she was building something, a research facility on her flagship where she was conducting experiments. We believe she's trying to create controlled super soldiers, Ji-won said. Warriors with the Blade Corps' abilities, but without the independence problems. If she succeeds, the coalition will have an unstoppable military force that answers only to her. We need to stop her, Taejin said. Agreed. But her flagship is one of the most heavily defended ships in the galaxy. A direct assault would be suicide. Ji-won pulled up a holographic display showing a massive warship. However, we have a plan. Admiral Chaewon captured one of our supply ships last week. The crew is being held in her brig, including Captain Yoonji and her people. Do-Hyun's head snapped up. Yoonji is captured. When did this happen? 2 days ago. Chaewon has been raiding anyone connected to you, trying to draw you out. Sunwoo was with them when they were taken. Guilt crashed over Do-Hyun. These people had helped him, and now they were prisoners because of him. We have to rescue them. That's what Chaewon wants. She knows you'll come. It's a trap. Then we'll spring the trap and break it from inside, Do-Hyun said firmly. Ji-won studied him for a long moment. You sound like Ha-yoon used to sound. Confident, brave, maybe a little reckless. A sad smile crossed her face. I'll help you, but you need to understand the risk. If you use the sword's full power, you might lose yourself completely. Min-seok nearly did, and you're more deeply bonded than any of us were. I'll take that risk, will you? She stepped closer, her voice dropping. Because I need to know. Are you doing this as Do-Hyun the blacksmith who wants to save his friends? Or as Ha-yoon the warrior who wants revenge on Chaewon? The question struck deeper than any blade. Do-Hyun realized he didn't know the answer. Over the past weeks, the line between his two selves had blurred. The memories returning, the combat instincts, the sword's constant presence in his mind. He was becoming something that was neither fully Do-Hyun nor fully Ha-yoon. Does it matter? He asked. Yes, because one of those people will stop when the mission is over. The other won't. Ji-won held his gaze. The Ha-yoon I knew, the original, he was driven. He couldn't stop fighting. That's why he was so effective. It's also why he couldn't have a normal life. If that's who you're becoming again, I need to know. Before Do-Hyun could answer, alarms blared throughout the base. Min-seok ran to a monitor. Chaewon's forces found us. 3 assault ships incoming, and they're jamming our communications. How did they find us? Someone shouted. Taejin's expression went dark. They tracked us. They knew Ha-yoon would seek out other survivors. We led them right here. The base erupted into controlled chaos as people grabbed weapons and moved to defensive positions. Ji-won pulled up tactical displays, coordinating the defense. But Do-Hyun could see the math was bad. The resistance had maybe 40 fighters. The assault ships carried hundreds of coalition soldiers with advanced weapons. We can't win this fight, Min-seok said quietly. We need to evacuate. There's no time, Ji-won replied. They'll be on us in minutes. Do-Hyun felt the sword pulse at his side. It wanted to be used. It wanted the fight. And part of him wanted it too. The part that remembered being the Phantom, the warrior who had never lost a battle. I can buy you time, he said. Get everyone to the ships. I'll hold them off. Alone? Mira grabbed his arm. That's suicide, not for me. Not with this sword. Ji-won looked like she wanted to argue, but she knew he was right. 10 minutes. That's all we need to get everyone aboard and launch. 10 minutes then. Do-Hyun walked out of the base and into the forest clearing where the assault ships were landing. He stood alone in the open, sword drawn, watching as loading ramps dropped and soldiers poured out. Coalition military, well-trained and heavily armed. They saw him and hesitated, probably confused why one person stood against them. Then an officer recognized him. It's the Phantom. Open fire. Plasma bolts filled the air. Do-Hyun's sword moved, deflecting shots with impossible precision. His body flowed through combat forms he didn't consciously remember, muscle memory guiding each motion. He was fast, faster than he had ever been. The sword sang its hissing song, and he felt its joy in the violence. He charged into their ranks. The blade cut through armor and weapons. He moved between soldiers like a ghost, always where they didn't expect. When they tried to surround him, he leaped over them, using the trees for leverage. When they tried to fall back, he pressed forward relentlessly, but there were so many. For every soldier he disabled, 3 more appeared. His muscles screamed with effort. A plasma bolt grazed his shoulder, burning through cloth and flesh. He didn't feel it. The sword pushed him forward, demanding more, always more. 5 minutes passed. Then 7. Behind him he heard ships launching. The resistance was escaping. Just a little longer. Just a few more seconds. That's when Sunwoo appeared. The young man stumbled down the ramp of one of the assault ships, hands bound, a guard dragging him forward. The guard put a weapon to Sunwoo's head. Surrender or the boy dies, the officer shouted. Do-Hyun froze. The sword screamed in his mind, telling him the boy was an acceptable sacrifice, that the mission mattered more. But Do-Hyun's heart, the blacksmith's heart, couldn't accept that. Let him go, Do-Hyun said. Drop the weapon first. Everything slowed down. Do-hyun could feel the sword's rage at the suggestion, could feel it demanding he fight, that he cut through all of them and damn the consequences. The weapon wanted blood. The weapon wanted victory. The weapon wanted to consume him entirely and become the perfect killer it was designed to be. And in that moment, Do-hyun realized he was tired. Tired of fighting. Tired of being afraid of what he might become. Tired of trying to balance two souls in one body. So he let go, not of the sword, but of his resistance to it. He stopped fighting what he was and accepted it fully. The warrior and the blacksmith, the past and the present, Hyun and Do-hyun, all of it together. All of it him. The sword's hiss changed tone, becoming something new, not angry but harmonious. The blue glow brightened until it was almost white. Power flooded through Do-hyun unlike anything he had felt before. This wasn't the weapon controlling him. This was complete synchronization. He moved. The world seemed to slow around him. He crossed the distance to Sunwoo in a heartbeat, his blade cutting through the guard's weapon and the bindings in one perfect motion. He pulled the boy behind him and faced the remaining soldiers. "Run," he told Sunwoo. The young man ran. The coalition forces opened fire with everything they had. Do-hyun didn't deflect the shots. His sword absorbed them, the energy feeding into its quantum matrix. When he released that energy, it came out as a wave of force that knocked soldiers back and disabled their weapons. Admiral Chaewon's voice crackled over the soldiers' communicators.
"Fall back.
All forces, retreat. That's not the Phantom we remember. That's something new." The assault ships lifted off, leaving Do-hyun standing alone in the smoking clearing. He looked at his sword. It still glowed, but softly now. The hissing had become almost like breathing, natural, calm. Behind him, one ship remained. Ji-won stood at the ramp staring at him with an expression he couldn't read. "That was different," she said. "What you just did. That wasn't Hyun's technique." "No," Do-hyun agreed. "It was mine." Admiral Chaewon's flagship hung in space like a sleeping giant, its weapons arrays glinting in the light of a distant star. Inside the resistance ship, Do-hyun studied the holographic display of the massive warship while the others finalized their plan. They had rescued Yoonji, Sunwoo, and the captured crew in a daring raid. But that had been the easy part. Now came the impossible task. "The weapons are being held in the research laboratory on Deck 7, Ji-won explained, pointing to the display. "Chaewon has been experimenting on them, trying to unlock their resonance patterns. If she succeeds, she could bond them to new warriors." "Her warriors? How many people are we talking about?" Taejin asked. "The lab is lightly guarded. Most of the ship's security is focused on protecting the bridge and the engine room. They don't expect anyone to target the lab. Because it's suicide to board that ship," Min-seok said. He had finally agreed to help, though his twin daggers remained locked away. "Even if we get in, we'll never get out." Do-hyun had been quiet during the planning, letting others talk while he listened to the sword. It had been different since the forest moon. The hissing was softer, almost conversational. Sometimes he thought he could understand what it was saying, though not in words. It was more like feelings and impressions flowing between him and the weapon. "I'll go alone," he said. "Absolutely not," Mira protested. "That's exactly what Chaewon wants. She wants the Phantom. She wants Hyun, but I'm not him anymore. I'm not just Do-hyun either. I'm something new, and she doesn't know what that means." Ji-won studied him carefully. "What are you planning?" "To finish this. To free the weapons and stop Chaewon. And to find out what I really am." "You'll die." "Maybe. Or maybe I'll finally understand why I survived when everyone else died." He held up the sword, watching light play along its crystalline surface. "This blade is part of me. The other weapons, they're part of their warriors too. If those warriors are dead, then their weapons are suffering. I can feel it like an echo in this one. They need to be freed, not used." The plan was simple in concept, impossible in execution. Do-hyun would take a small infiltration ship and dock with the flagship disguised as a supply transport. Once inside, he would make his way to the laboratory, free the weapons, and escape. The resistance would provide a distraction by attacking the flagship's sensor array, drawing security away from the internal decks. "And when you get to the lab?" Taejin asked. "What then?" "I don't know. The sword will show me." The night before the mission, Ji-won found Do-hyun in the ship's small observation deck. He was meditating with the sword across his knees, its glow providing the only light. "Can I sit?" she asked. He nodded. She settled beside him, close but not touching. For a long moment, they sat in comfortable silence. "I've been thinking about what you said," Jiwan began, "about being something new. The Hyun I knew, he wouldn't have thought that way. He saw himself as a weapon to be used. You see yourself as a person who happens to have a weapon. Is that bad? No, it's better. It's what the Blade Corps should have been." She finally looked at him. "I loved Hyun. I need you to know that. But I think I like who you're becoming more. He was brilliant in combat, but he didn't know how to be anything else. You're learning to be both warrior and human. That's harder but more important." "I'm scared," Do-hyun admitted. "When I fight, part of me enjoys it too much. The sword's influence or Hyun's memories, I can't tell. What if I win tomorrow but lose myself doing it? Then we'll help you find your way back. That's what friends do." She reached over and squeezed his hand. "You're not alone anymore. Remember that." The infiltration went smoothly at first. The supply ship docked without challenge, and Do-hyun made it into the flagship's corridors without being detected. The sword's presence helped him sense patrol patterns and avoid security cameras. He moved like a shadow through the massive warship. But when he reached Deck 7, he found someone waiting for him. Admiral Chaewon stood before the laboratory door, flanked by 2 guards in advanced combat armor. She was older than her file photos suggested, with gray hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. "Welcome aboard, Hyun," she said calmly. "Or should I call you Do-hyun? I understand you prefer that name now." "You murdered my squad," Do-hyun said. "Why? Murder?" "No, I eliminated a threat to galactic stability. The Blade Corps was becoming uncontrollable. Warriors who could defeat armies alone, who answered to no authority but their own. That's not a military unit. That's a disaster waiting to happen. So you killed us, I tried. But you were always the anomaly. The only one who achieved perfect synchronization. The only one who could balance the weapon's influence with human judgment. I thought I had solved that problem when I had your memory wiped. I should have destroyed you completely." "Why didn't you?" Chaewon smiled coldly. "Because I'm a scientist as well as an officer. You were valuable data. I wanted to see if the clone would develop the same abilities naturally, without the trauma of the bonding process. Unfortunately, you disappeared before I could complete my observations." The guards raised their weapons, but Chaewon held up a hand. "Not yet. I want to see what he's become." She touched a control panel and the laboratory door opened. "Inside. I think you'll find this interesting." Do-hyun entered cautiously, sword ready. The laboratory was huge, filled with equipment and research stations. But what drew his attention were the 6 weapons mounted on display stands in the center of the room. Swords, spears, axes, all made of the same crystalline material as his blade, all glowing faintly with trapped consciousness. He approached them slowly. The moment he got close, his sword began to hiss urgently. The other weapons responded, their glow brightening. He could feel them now, the echoes of the warriors who had bonded to them. Pain, loneliness, anger. They were aware but trapped, unable to act or even fully think. It was torture. "Beautiful, aren't they?" Chaewon said from the doorway. "Each one contains the neural pattern of a dead warrior. With the right technique, I can extract those patterns and implant them into new soldiers. Imagine an army of Blade Corps warriors all loyal to the coalition. That's obscene. That's progress. Those warriors volunteered for the program. Their sacrifice will benefit all of humanity." Do-hyun touched the nearest weapon, a long spear. The moment his hand made contact, memories flooded his mind. A woman named Sora, fierce and proud, who had loved flying more than anything. She had died in a training accident, but her consciousness had been preserved in the spear. She was screaming silently, begging for release. He touched each weapon in turn, learning their stories. Brave people who had been turned into tools and then forgotten. The rage built in him, and the sword responded to it, glowing brighter and brighter. "You can't save them," Chaewon said. "They're too far gone. The only mercy now is to use them for something meaningful." "No." Do-hyun's voice was hard. "There's another way." He raised his sword high and brought it down on the nearest weapon. Not to destroy it, but to connect with it. The moment the blades touched, power flowed between them. His consciousness reached out through his sword and into the spear. He found Sora's trapped awareness and spoke to her without words. "You can rest now. You've suffered enough. Let go." She didn't understand at first, too broken by years of imprisonment. But he showed her what he was. A warrior who had found balance between weapon and self. He showed her that death wasn't the end, but a return to peace. Slowly, carefully, He helped her consciousness separate from the spear. The weapon's glow faded to nothing as Sora's awareness dispersed like smoke. Finally free, the spear clattered to the floor, now just metal. Chaewon's expression changed to shock. That's impossible. You can't just erase a bonded consciousness. I'm not erasing them. I'm setting them free. He moved to the next weapon, then the next. Each time he connected with the trapped warrior and helped them let go. Some resisted, afraid of the emptiness. Others embraced it gratefully. One by one, he freed them all. With each release, his own sword grew brighter. He was absorbing something from the freed weapons, not their consciousness, but their knowledge. The techniques they had mastered, the skills they had learned. By the time he freed the last weapon, he was trembling with power. Chaewon backed toward the door. Guards, terminate him. The armored guards opened fire. Do-hyun's sword moved in patterns he had never learned, techniques from all the freed warriors flowing through him. He deflected plasma fire, cut through armor, and disarmed the guards without killing them. When they fell back, he advanced on Chaewon. You're under arrest, he said. For what? Following orders? Doing what was necessary? For forgetting that warriors are people first. For treating us like machines. For valuing power over life. He raised his sword and she flinched. But he didn't strike. Instead, he lowered the blade. I'm not going to kill you. That's what Hyun would have done. I'm taking you to face justice. That's what Do-hyun chooses. The resistance had succeeded in their distraction, and the flagship systems were in chaos. Do-hyun escorted Chaewon through the corridors, sword ready but hoping he wouldn't need to use it. They almost made it to the docking bay when internal security caught up with them. A full platoon of soldiers blocked their path, weapons raised. Do-hyun looked at the odds and sighed. This was going to be difficult. He prepared to fight, then Min-seok appeared beside him, twin daggers in his hands glowing with soft light. You're not doing this alone. I thought you swore never to use those again, Do-hyun said. I did, but watching you free those weapons, seeing how you balance what you are, it showed me something. The daggers didn't make me a killer. My fear of them did. Time to face that fear. Min-seok smiled. Besides, someone needs to watch your back. They fought together, two Blade Corps warriors in perfect sync. Min-seok's speed complemented Do-hyun's power. They didn't kill when they could disable. They didn't destroy when they could redirect. It was a new way of using the weapons, not as tools of death but as instruments of protection. When the last soldier fell back, Do-hyun and Min-seok stood breathing hard but victorious. Chaewon stared at them in disbelief. This is what the Blade Corps should have been, Do-hyun told her. Not weapons for conquest, but guardians. Not tools, but people who chose to protect others. They escaped the flagship as it jumped to hyperspace. The resistance celebrated their victory, having captured Coalition's most corrupt admiral and freed the tortured weapon spirits. But Do-hyun felt hollow. He had accomplished his mission, but he still didn't know what he truly was. That night he took his sword to the ship's small forge, a basic facility for repairs. Ji-won found him there, heating the blade in the flame. What are you doing? She asked. Something I should have done from the start. I'm reforging this sword, making it truly mine, not Hyun's and not just a weapon. Both of us together, equal partners. He worked through the night, treating the quantum blade like ordinary metal even though he knew it was so much more. He folded it, hammered it, shaped it with the skill of a blacksmith and the understanding of a warrior. Mira helped him, using her technical knowledge to stabilize the quantum patterns. Taejin watched, offering advice from his years of experience. When dawn came, the sword was finished. It looked the same but felt different. When Do-hyun held it, there was no hiss. Instead, a soft hum like a tuning fork held just right. The glow was warmer, more steady. He swung it through a practice form, and it responded perfectly to his intention. How does it feel? Ji-won asked. Like me. Finally like me. 3 months later, Do-hyun stood in a small forge on Thresh 9. He had returned to the mining colony, to the simple life he had built before everything changed. But he was different now. The sign above his door showed a glowing blue sword with words beneath it, made to protect. He crafted weapons for colonists and travelers, each one made with care and purpose. His sword hung on the wall where everyone could see it, humming softly. Sometimes people asked about it. That's my reminder, he would say. We're all made of the choices we forge, not the metal we're born from. Mira had stayed with him, opening a repair shop next door. Taejin visited often, having retired from military life. Jiwan sent messages from distant stars, still fighting the good fight, but always promising to return. Minsuk had gone back to his homeworld, finally at peace with his daggers. One day, a young human walked into the forge carrying a broken tool. As Do-hyun examined it, the young man stared at the glowing sword on the wall. "Is that thing real?" he asked. "I've heard stories about the Blade Corps. Were you really one of them?" Do-hyun smiled. "I was. But that was a different life. Now I'm just a blacksmith who remembers what it means to be a warrior when necessary." "That's so amazing. You must miss it, being that powerful and respected." "Sometimes," Do-hyun admitted, "but I found something better here. Purpose without destruction, strength without violence. A life I chose rather than one I was programmed for." He picked up his hammer. "Now let's fix your tool. That's the kind of power I prefer these days." As he worked, the sword hummed quietly on the wall. It was content. It had found what it had been searching for all along. Not a wielder, not a warrior, but a person who understood that true strength came from choosing to create rather than destroy. And on quiet nights when Do-hyun meditated with the blade, he could feel echoes of the freed warrior's gratitude. They were at peace now, and so was he. The blacksmith who discovered he was a warrior, and the warrior who chose to be human. That was enough.